And that's a serious matter. When we don't put God first and our allegiance is not with God first, it's a serious matter because not one tittle of God's holy law is to be treated lightly or disrespectful. Those who transgress, or thus saith the Lord, stand under the banner of the Prince of Darkness in rebellion against their Maker and their Redeemer. They claim the promises given to the obedient, saying, the temple of the Lord are we. Wow, they dishonor God by misrepresenting his character, by doing the very things he has told them not to do. They set up a standard which God has not given them. Their example is misleading, their influence corrupting. They are not lights in the world, for they do not follow the principles of righteousness. So, God sends messengers to tell his people what they must do and what they must be and do in order to obey his laws of righteousness, which if a man do, he shall also live in them. They are to love God supremely, having no other gods before him. And they are to love their neighbor as themselves, doing to him as they would wish him to do to them. Some people would like to be treated as royalty, but when it comes to the treatment of other people, they tend to neglect that treatment. They tend to be sort of selective on how they treat other people. This is where we were talking about impartiality. They tend to treat those who treat them well, but those who don't have the capacity to treat them well, they tend to neglect, or they tend to sort of dishonor or debase, you could say. However, we ought to have a love, because God is love. We got to have a love of God because God is love. See, brothers and sisters, if we claim to be Christians, but we don't have the love of God, and we then start treating others with disrespect, with no loyalty, then that love of God that we have in the other person's eye becomes a facade. It becomes false. It becomes negative. So instead of giving God glory, they then tend to come away from wanting or trying to be Christians. They then say, what's the point of being a Christian when I can see in you that you don't have any love, and you have judgment, and you have sort of this authority that makes you think that you are better than me. So people then tend to be like, well, if all of Christianity is like that, I don't want to be part of that. So when we are proclaiming God's word, we ought to have the love of God in us. A love that oversees or sort of forbears and neglects pompousness.